Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Get Jasched. I'm particularly excited today because I have with me Kacie Brignell. Kacie is a LinkedIn and connection strategist who helps business owners and professionals not only build more genuine connections in their networking online and in person, but also helps them to do so by being completely themselves and feeling confident in the process. And I know, having been around Kacie in what you could probably say kind of networking situations, like, but for a purpose. She walks the talk and she is so warm and so confident, but it also makes you feel warm and confident as well. So I'm really glad to have you here. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me. And it's so nice to hear that I help others feel warm and confident too, because
Yeah.
that's
Well,
important.
as I said that, I'm like, it's not that I feel cold.
No,
Like,
no, no.
yeah, I'm like, it's just a cold bitch on the other, but like, but I think you understand what I meant. I think people
Yes.
get it or not, but yeah,
Welcome. It's like a friendly hug. So
exactly. It is, and it genuinely feels that way. And we were just saying before we started recording that we never really get a proper chance to sort of properly talk at these things, and that's okay, but like it's nice to sort of have those moments, and then now we get to kind of just dive into all of it as well. And you are someone that, like, as someone, I'm just going to dive straight in because we're talking about networking, right? And a lot of people struggle with that.
yeah.
I am one of those people. I'm good when I have a purpose.
Hmm.
Like when I have a job to do, I wear a hat, but I'm also autistic. So I struggle. Like, it's like I want to talk, and ADHD, so I want to talk to people, but I struggle with, like, how? And I'm really good at it when it's happening, but it's a how. And you are one of those people that my brain has identified in the room, and I'm always usually looking for the green, by the way. If you're just listening, Casey's wearing a lovely green jacket.
Kind of a signature color. Yeah.
You're usually wearing green, and you're one of those people that, like, if I know you're in the room, I will, like, my brain kind of seeks you out in a non creepy way.
Yep.
Kind of seeks you out because I'm like, oh, she's so safe. Like, I can, like,
Yeah.
I feel that warmth. Like, it's like I feel warm with her. Like, I'm there's no, like, initial, how do we get into this conversation? It's just straight in. So
Yeah.
yeah, just to give everyone else an idea of what you're about and how people experience you as well.
Yeah. And you're right. It's not, networking is not easy for everybody. It can be simple, but it's definitely not
Yeah.
easy. And there is a lot of people um, who are introverted and extroverted who do struggle with networking events. So just because you can hold a conversation doesn't mean you're comfortable, you know? So,
Yeah, that's it. And
yeah.
it's such an interesting thing. And I know that a lot of people get really sweaty at the idea of it. But, like, you correct me on this if it's not quite accurate, but, like, you work with business owners, but also professionals. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So my background is actually in business development and sales and event
Mm,
management as well. So I've
yeah.
always been in those service-based, face-to-face type of roles where it is so important to build the relationship and not just sell the product. You know,
Mm,
there's God knows how many event spaces in Brisbane, as an example. There's a numerous number of accommodation type of spaces as well. So it came down to obviously the relationship building prior to selling the product. So, um, yeah, that's
it's
yeah.
it sounds like it's practice, like you've really practiced at it, which is, I think, like a key part of it. And I kind of want to distinguish the difference between practice and rehearse.
Yeah.
Would you say there's a difference there, or, like, is it just like getting comfortable by practicing versus, like, because sometimes I think with rehearsal, and this is could be a semantics thing that's just in
Yeah,
my
yeah,
head, but with rehearsal, it's like it can come off dry and not actually connecting.
yeah. I think there's also a difference between rehearsal and being prepared. So it's
Yeah.
okay to be prepared. It's okay to practice a little bit of a elevator pitch or an intro
Mm.
pitch or something like that. but also, you know, we do what we do. We know what we do. So, and I know this is easy to say, and again, it will just be put one of those things into practice, is trust that you're going to say the right stuff. You don't have to give everyone the whole spiel, you know, about the 4-page essay or whatever it is about your business. You know, it could just be simply like, hey, this is what I do, you know. So even being prepared, just have a little think about, okay, if I do say what do I do to someone, how could I just say it in a simple sentence, you know, without rehearsing to walk in and go, hi, Jess, I'm Kacie. It's great to meet you. I help business owners with their LinkedIn networking skills, you know, blah, 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 ramble.
And it's immediately like, is she a robot? Like,
yeah,
what's happening? And we've like, I'm sure all of us can think of a time that we've been guilty of a little bit of that. And it's so there's no shame or anything in it. It's just literally, how can we remember that this is just connection, right?
yeah. And I think, you know, sometimes there's particular, say, networking events you'll go to where you do have to get up and do a 30-second or a 60-second pitch or something like that. But you can still add warmth to that. And I think part of that is allowing yourself to take a moment to breathe. And if you stuff up, you stuff up. Like, it's okay. You're a human being, you know. People probably remember the fact that you've had a bit of a giggle or not said the right thing, you know, and that's totally okay. Like, I often put my foot in my mouth or say something, I'm like, ooh, I don't know if that came across properly.
Yeah, that's it. Like, I also know that the people in the room, like, you know, when everyone's sort of setting up, doing that little bit,
Yeah.
the people where I get to see a bit of their personality, like if they giggle, if they're, you know, like if there's something like, oh, they're fun. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's like it endears, I fully believe it endears us to, like, it endears you to other people rather than most of the time people aren't sitting there criticizing and judging so harshly the way that our brains will try
No,
to tell
they're
us
actually internalizing how they're interacting and what they're about to say.
Yeah, they're
They're actually
preparing their
so
own.
focused on themselves at times. So
Yeah, they're either thinking about what they think they said wrong or they're preparing because they know that they're coming up. And
yeah,
you know, yeah, it's such a funny game.
yeah,
So you said that your background is in like BDM sales and everything. I particularly noticed a big history in events for you,
yes.
which, having run events in the past for like companies I've worked in as well as run my own events, that's my favorite place to be in if I'm at an event, is if I'm wearing that hat
Of running
of
it.
of running it. Yeah,
Is
I'm
that
like,
so
oh,
you
I'm
can
really,
hide behind the scenes a little bit?
it's masking, yes.
Yeah.
But it lets me enjoy it at the same
Yes.
time. Like, it's this because I don't hide, like it's not like a hat that I sort of have lowered and go, oh no one,
Yeah.
like, you know, it's like, it's just an opportunity to know how I can start to engage in the conversation,
Yeah.
because I know that I'm like, well, I could check in with the bar staff if it's that kind of event, or I can check in with the venue, or I can check in and genuinely ask, oh, how are you going? Like, you know, like, which is all things that I could do, that I've learned to do otherwise, right? If I'm just an attendee, but it is still my favorite, most comfortable position to be in at an event, because it's kind of like, oh, there's the purpose. Like, I already have the purpose, so everything else comes easy.
You have a role. You're not almost walking into a room with no idea where you stand or fit or
Exactly
mesh with
that.
others. Yeah.
Yeah. So so I know that, like, that kind of experience, and I want to hear a little bit about it from you. This is where I'm leading with this, but like that kind of experience can make it feel more comfortable with events. And I think that is the reason that, even though personally I struggle with like networking events, if there's strangers, you know, like exactly how you described it, I am able to find a way more easily because I've experienced it in a different way before.
Yeah. You know how it works on both sides almost.
Yeah, yeah. So it makes it a bit easier, but I know that not everyone's going to be in that position. So what was your experience? Were you ever nervous in that way, or did you just land in and go, oh, this is great?
Running events, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've been packing it. I mean, I like to give a very brief snapshot, and there's obviously a lot more to this. I actually started in events because I read a book, and I can't even tell you the name of this book.
Oh, I was going to
And it
say,
was
I'm like, what book?
yeah, I have no idea. But it was a fiction book, and I just remember within the
Oh,
book, part of the story was a lady had to find a unicorn for a 16-year-old's birthday. And I'm like, that's what I want to do. Not find unicorns for 16-year-olds' birthdays,
okay.
but just reading the story about this person's life of creating and developing and bringing people together. I'm like, I think that's what I want to do. So I actually I ended up doing uni, like this is well after school and taking, finishing
Yeah.
everything else. And then when I was in uni, the first subject I picked was events management. And I thought, if I suck at this, that's it. I'm not doing the rest of the bachelor. Like it's, it's going to take me forever if
That's
I do it
fair.
part-time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I got a distinction.
Oh,
And now
wow.
at school, I was the average C grade student.
Mhm.
Like, I survived, I passed. But I never really got a lot of A's or a couple of B's, but never a lot of A's. And then when I
Yeah.
got a distinction in this subject at uni, I'm like, I think I've found one of my things that I'm
It's
really
like
good
you
at.
found something that you want to, like, you want to actually sink your teeth into.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So,
Mm.
fast forward all of that. Event wise, I've done everything from, being wait staff and setting up venues and things like that for your typical conferences and seminars and stuff.
Mhm.
I've also done weddings. I've also had to introduce brides and grooms into a wedding, and I've had to hit play for a song on a bride, which was one of the most terrifying things
It's
to
so
try and get at the right time.
So as like a wedding planner or as like the venue manager or like a bit of both or
Bit of both, yeah, but
yeah.
also mainly as the event,
Yeah,
as
right.
a within a venue.
Yeah.
But for me, like, I was an Air Force kid, so I've always made friends. I went to 9 different schools through my 12 years of schooling, so it was normal for me to make friends.
Yeah.
But in events, the cool part was I could bring people together and I could make people's dreams come true, in a sense of speaking. But I
Yeah.
could still hide behind the scenes a little bit.
Ah, so that's why yes, I understand.
Yeah.
You get to sort of be involved and watch and engage, but then
Yeah.
also
And
choose when you sort of stepped back.
exactly. And take care of people and make sure, as you were saying before, that everyone's happy and things are
Mm.
working and, problem solve and all of that. When I started my own business, I actually then started to run my own networking events as well.
Yeah.
And as you said, it is a really great way of being front and center
Mhm.
without feeling like you're putting yourself in the spotlight. Because you're
Yeah.
running the event, people are naturally going to approach you as well.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, because
yeah.
I think that's it. It's like I don't mind I always make the joke in various ways where it's like, just get me on a stage and I'm okay. Like,
Yeah.
because I have a role. Like, I was a theater kid and like dance and drama, so that was like, oh, yeah, let me do that.
Yeah.
So it's not like that kind of spotlight was uncomfortable because, like we were saying, like, it's a job, and in those events, like, people would come up. So it's like, oh, it's
You don't have
as
to
I
work with
say,
that. Yeah.
yeah, as I say it that way, it feels like cheating.
But it works.
But someone had to put the event on. I don't know. Like,
Exactly.
but yeah, it's nice to hear, I think, and that's why I asked also, because it's nice to hear that like everyone does get nervous at times. Like,
Yeah.
even people who are running the events or
Yeah.
even, like anyone involved for whatever reason might feel a little bit of like exposure in a way.
Yeah. And I mean, I can probably say honestly that I've built my business on my network. I'm building my network, whether that's face-to-face events or online or whichever. And I've recently moved from Brisbane up to the Sunshine Coast. I do not have a network up at the Sunshine.
Mm.
I have my posse in Brisbane, like I know everyone there. I've had to re-establish my networks up here. And, I've been doing this for years and it's the stuff I talk about. I still get nervous once in a while walking into a room
Mm.
because it is that little bit, oh, that's right. I actually don't know anyone here. And I'm like, great. But the cool part is I get to meet new people,
Yeah, yeah, and that's so you too. Just like, oh yay, I get to, which is so good. is it interesting sort of taking your own medicine in that way and having to go, oh, this is what I work with clients on. This is how
Yeah,
I have to practice that also.
it's a good reminder because I think when something comes so natural to us in whatever
Mm,
form that is, we kind of forget how difficult it can be.
yeah, we
You
forget
know, which
how
is
to
why
do
our
it.
clients, yeah, and which is why our
Yeah.
clients are coming to us in the first place to help them. So sometimes it's really nice to be sort of grounded again and
Mm,
surrounded by that freshness of
mhm.
what you help people with. And I think like I do appreciate networking's not easy for everyone, but I do think there's that big maybe that mindset shift in saying, oh, I have to go to the networking events to build my network, but I get to go to these networking,
Yeah.
you know. So
That's such a good shift too, because you can apply it literally anywhere in life. Like, whatever it is, it's like, oh, I have to go grocery shopping, or I get to, and yay, like
yeah.
food and house. Like, but um I do agree with that, because I think sometimes we sort of, and I'm very generalizing here, but like we can as humans, because our brains are trying to keep us safe, so we're always looking for comfort in what we know and all of that.
Yeah.
Sometimes we sort of go with what's comfortable, and if it feels uncomfortable, it's like I describe it as like the electric fence sort of shock of, oh no,
Mm,
don't touch that, like got to get away from that,
yeah.
and I think because networking involves other people and other unknown people and unknown factors, like, so it can just sort of work with the brain, and well, work not with the brain, but I guess it like feel loud in the brain of going, I don't know how to, like,
Yeah.
I don't know what to expect, I don't know how to prepare for this, or I don't, like, and some people find that really enjoyable, like it's almost like a thrill
Mm.
for them.
Yeah, as in other people be like, can I have 2 glasses of whiskey or something before I go in, because it's the
Mm.
only way to make me, ooh, come down a level. Yeah.
Yeah, just make me just talkative enough just so I can just, yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
So um have you been practicing, just in relation to you being up on the coast and everything now, and doing that, have you been tempted to practice it by creating your own events more, or have you really leaned into just going, I'm going to go to these other events,
Yeah.
like I'm just going to do this first? And
Yeah, so far it's just leaning into other people's events. Um, I may have an opportunity coming up of actually starting an event
oh,
up here. I can't really talk about that right now,
that's
but
okay, stay tuned.
but yeah, at the moment I'm just going to other events. And I think the thing to remember too is that like there's so many different styles of networking events if you want to put them in a box. Um,
Mm,
but there's also there's certain group membership groups and things like that, but different groups within those membership type of networking groups have a different feeling and a different group of people. So I think what's cool is if you are going to try networking, try the different groups and get out the little one that if you are already going, you might be comfortable with. Expand that circle a bit more because uh, if you're new and you're struggling and you just feel like networking's not your thing because you had an experience at, a bad experience at one, try something else. Your people may be at a different type of
yeah,
networking event. So
yeah.
I think it's important to like spread your wings and try a few different ones. And I've been doing it up here. I know a couple of groups that are similar to down in Brisbane, but I'm also going, oh, okay, well, what else is here? What else is out here? Do I want to try some female only groups? Because I very
Mm.
rarely go to like female only type of groups. Are there, especially on the coast, are there more the holistic wellness type of groups?
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
everywhere.
are there more corporate groups? Like there's a whole mix
Mm,
of events. So
yeah.
yeah, maybe if you can't find it, start one. Even if it's 10 people having a cup of coffee together, it
Yeah,
doesn't
see,
have to
that
be a
that
huge
that
thing.
feels like my, like, if it's a networking, if it's not for something that's being held or facilitated, if it's just to get together, I'm like, oh yeah, I could do coffee. Like,
Yeah.
it's almost like the activity makes it easier. It's
Yes.
just like, oh, I get to sit down. But if it's standing around a room, like holding a drink and holding your stuff,
Like,
and you're like,
Yeah, now I
Yes,
have my hands
hello.
free.
Yeah. It's just this awkward, like just all of this awkward turtle things.
Yeah.
So why uh for the people, because I can kind of like, I'm sure they exist, who are still like, why would I? Like, why should I? Like, what is the benefit of networking? What's, especially for business owners or people who are professionals wanting to sort of, you know,
Yeah.
do their thing and build that skill or build their connections and their network?
Yeah.
Why would they go to whatever kind of event for it?
Mm. It, I think the one thing you need to remember is it goes beyond finding a client.
Mm.
So you can potentially find a direct client at a networking event. You could also potentially find, the perfect referral type of partner at a networking event for you. There's obviously those two reasons to help you grow your business. But I think the other thing we need to remember is that networking really helps you, like building your network, it really helps you find those common people and those like-minded people. And I know those phrases are used a lot, but when you run your own business, whether it's just you or whether you've got a team of 10, I personally think unless you're surrounding yourself by other people who kind of get what you're going through, it can be really, really tough. So a networking group or event or whatever is also an awesome way just to surround yourself with other people who are going
Mm.
through the same stuff. So you feel like you're not alone. You meet some really, like I've even met some really amazing people, colleagues that now become friends, or best friends at
Yeah.
these events. To me, networking events, they can bring you clients, sure, they can bring you opportunities, but they can also just have you just meet some really cool people. And then you have someone you can make a phone call to when you've hit a bit of a brick wall, or, there's someone you could call that you met at an event who's going to be a bit of a cheerleader when you need to pick me up, that type of stuff. So
Yeah.
it goes
Yeah.
beyond the dollars that you can make.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's more about the community that you can pull around you.
I like that as well, because I know that so often, especially if you're like a small business owner, it's very important. Like, it's not just important to be bringing in the revenue. It's really important because usually you've sort of put everything
Yeah.
into that, all of that, right? Um, but I love that emphasis that you bring in on community, because I think so often what we can do, and there's going to be different ways that this works for different people,
Yeah.
right? Like there's two versions of that in my head just as I'm saying this, where I'm like, well, this would work well for me, but also, oh no, this would work, like just for whatever reason. But the community, like so often we can kind of tend to isolate ourselves in this world of ours in a way. And I don't even mean physical isolation. Like, we've done that the last few years, but I also have had moments over the last few years, like during COVID and everything, where it's like, oh, I feel way more connected because I entered into groups like online.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, I actually got to experience even more of that. So there's different ways to do it, but it's this element of community, because sometimes, and I wonder if this is also in Australia, like, there's there's the ever-present risk of tall poppy syndrome, like trying to
Yeah.
slash us down a little. It's not everywhere, and people are sort of, cottoning on to that, but at the same time it can be there. But just this idea of, I have to do it on my own, or I'm just focused, and
Yeah.
if I'm not going to get an ROI, like I'm not going to get a return, or
Or if I
on.
be vulnerable and I let people know I'm actually had, like, I don't know, a $2,000 month, and they're thinking I'm doing 50K months, I'm going to be caught out. No one's going to want to work with me.
Yeah,
And it's like, oh my God.
there's all the stories. It's like, I'm just going to do
Yeah.
it on my own, and I don't have time, and if I'm not going to get a client out of it, like, then what's the point?
Yeah.
Or I have enough friends. It's like, sometimes it's like, yes, you can develop friendships, but it's not actually about going there to make a friend either. It's about going there to build your professional community, which is kind of um a different category in itself as well.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is like, sure, you can run your own networking events or whatever type of event, workshops, whatever, to bring your community to you, like
Mm.
your tribe, or you could just tap into somebody else's and make it a bit easier,
Yeah.
And I think also there is, beyond potentially making friends and everything else, we all need that human interaction at some point. Like I
Mhm.
notice on the times that I'm like, oh, I'm feeling really flat lately. I'm like, when was the last time I went to a networking event? Oh, it's been a couple
Yeah.
of weeks. I need to get out there because
Yeah.
it's just sometimes nice to hear other people's perspectives and thoughts. And it doesn't always have to be business talk either. So
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's an important thing to remember because like nothing happens in isolation, especially success,
Mm,
like the world's billionaires, none of them became billionaires on their own.
mm,
There's no such thing as self-made because they have support teams and they have people, doing
yeah.
their chores for them. Like, it's all like it's all there. So
All the D grade tasks that they don't need
yeah,
to be doing. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, which
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the idea of personally. I'm like,
Yeah.
great, let me just lay on the grass with the dogs more. But
Love that.
it's the happy place.
Yeah.
But it's like it it's this community, and you can still have your space. And like I'm someone that I thrive really well when I can dip into spaces like the team at the office, or into spaces where I like the people and go, cool, yeah, I'm here. And then I have days where I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
just in my own space, in my home office, and I really thrive there too. So
Yeah.
like you still can kind of balance that, but at the same time we build things in community. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that people need to be living on top of each other in that way, like professionally or anything, but we create, I'm going to get a little meta on this, but like we create our world from community, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
well, if we're all trying to just do it on our own, then we're not really going to get very far.
Mm,
But if
yeah.
we sort of just, have just this connection with others, we remember what we're doing it for.
Yeah. And I think the thing is too, is you just don't know where those connections can take you either. Like, um, I got a phone call, I remember 7 years down the track after meeting this particular person. And he's like, hey, it's such and such. I'm like, yeah, yeah, we did this event together at blah, blah, blah hotel. And he's like, you remember me? I'm like, of course I remember you, went on and so on and so forth. But an opportunity actually came out of that for the both of us.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we met 7 years ago, you know? And at the time, just a connection, just a face, stayed in
Hmm.
contact, nothing more, no
Yeah,
expectations.
that's
And then,
it.
yeah, I think community is, to me, your network should be part of your community before they're even part of a sales process. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Well, that leads into the next question that was sort of starting to bubble up as you were sharing that as well, is like, at what point, if it ever becomes a point, right? At what point would it be appropriate to start to invite someone else into that kind of conversation, in terms of like, if you've recognized, they could be like, I could really help them with whatever my product or service is. Like I could, you know, this could actually be really useful for them.
Mm,
And, you kind of, I guess, if someone's gone to a networking event, built up this connection and everything like that, and then they've identified, oh yeah, this person could also be a great client, like this could be that great relationship and everything. At what point would that sort of, and it's kind of like how long is a piece of string, but at what point would that be appropriate in
yeah.
that way?
I think to put it in a nutshell, the simple answer is after the event. It's in the follow-up.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
in the
yep.
follow-up. And the follow-up might be, hey Jess, it was so great to meet you at like such and such event last night or whatever. You free for a chat next week? I'd just love to get to know you better, that type of thing.
Mm.
And a lot of the time, there's obviously a way you can structure this as well. But a lot of the time you will naturally then go into what you talk about. You'll pique the curiosity of the other person. Or you could even just outright in the conversation say, hey, Jess, like you told me at the event XYZ. Don't know if you're interested or not, but I have this thing that might just help.
Mm.
If it doesn't, cool, but I just thought I'd let you know about it. Meanwhile, they probably already know about it because you've met the networking event, done the traditional. So what do you do? Well, this is what I do. Conversation. Now you've jumped on a call and you've had hopefully a bit of chit chat,
Yeah.
and then talked about what you do. I talk about what I do, and then it's sort of a natural progression from there as well.
Hmm.
Also remembering that, yeah, the person you meet at the event might be the ideal client, or they might just be someone who's really great to know because you don't know who they know. So they may know
Yeah.
someone who actually needs your help. So
Yeah.
it's in the follow-up, and that's why you do need to nurture your network.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. Our great friend Gary Banks always says, he's like, the fortune is in the follow-up. The fortune is in the follow-up. And it's like, yeah. And I think I always describe that part as like showing them the dessert menu. Because like, you know, like you're at a restaurant and the wait staff come around and they're like, oh, do you want to look at the dessert menu? And you
Yeah,
have the choice. And then if you do look at it, you still have the choice. Like you don't have to buy anything. You don't have to
yeah,
do anything. Or you could be like, oh, actually, that creme brulee looks really good. And I haven't had a good creme brulee and I've been thinking about it. You know, like
yeah,
it's just showing the menu and it's almost like that energy of exactly how you said it. Like, hey, you said this, like,
mm,
you're here to eat. There's dessert available. Like, you know, you said this. Just wanted to let you know this is an option if you want to have a chat. You let me know.
yeah.
And
And I think that's sometimes the mistake people can make is they're like, okay, so I have to follow up. So I need to get my sales pitch ready. And then they get on the phone, they're like, hi, I know you said this, so I know you want a creme brulee. So here's my creme brulee options, and these are the prices, and you can get them in these 3 different sizes. And you're like, whoa, dude, I just wanted to say hi. Like,
yeah.
you know, when I say dude, that's male or female. It's not
Yeah, I'm the
necessarily
same. Like, yeah. But it is like it's such a there's a balance to it, but I also I don't know if it's too delicate. Like I think we just kind of we hold so much pressure in ourselves at that,
Mm,
like we can hold so much pressure in ourselves at that point and go, oh, I have to get this right. So if I don't get this right, I'm just going to get every word out first, and like I'm not going to let them speak. I'm not going to ask them questions. I'm not going to, you know, I'm just going to and you just put this wave over them
yeah.
of, oh, I'm no longer connecting. I'm now just the,
Yeah, which can be hard too if you just happen to be a moment in your business, or as an employee where you haven't hit the
Mhm.
KPIs or the targets yet.
Yeah.
You think, I have to bring some cash in. Like, I'm in dire straits, I need to bring some cash in. So
Yeah.
I think a lot of the time it's either someone's not aware, maybe they need to develop the interpersonal skills a bit, or maybe it's just they're in dire straits feeling of cash flow.
Yeah.
There isn't
There's
a flow of
stress.
cash,
They're
and
like,
there's no money.
this has to happen because
Yeah,
what happens if it doesn't? Yeah.
exactly. So I
Mhm.
think that's the thing too, is then where we go, you know what? The way we know as humans, we connect on something common, and it
Mm.
doesn't have to be, hey Jess, do you ride motorbikes? Yes, no, you don't. Okay, bye. Like, it could be anything. It could just simply be you both went to the event. Like, that's the start.
Yeah. And you're both human and
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And I think if you can just trust the process a little bit, calm down a little bit, let
Mm.
people know what you do, let the conversation naturally happen. Like I said, they may be a great client for you. They may not even be aware of that right now, but they might have 5 other people that they could potentially put in front of you, and you just don't know.
Yeah. I think it's that piece of not controlling the conversation either as well.
Mm.
It's like if you let it, like, it's, sorry, there was something that my brain snagged on back there where it was um sometimes the thing in common, or the only thing in common that you need, is that you're both willing to be in the conversation together.
Yeah. Yep. And you're
And
just curious about somebody
mhm,
else. Yeah.
yeah, and I think, and I've seen it with people too, where they get so caught up in like, how do I find this connection point? Like, you know, sometimes the literal question, how do I find what we have in common so then I can connect with them
Yeah.
to that? And then, you know, like, and
Because
then lead it down this
Yeah,
path.
because
Like,
Networking 101 said, I have to learn my pitch, and then I have to ask the right questions, and then I have to make sure we have something in common, and then I get to say.
mhm. Yeah. And people are like, how do I find something in common? And then that's where I think that's where the conversation always gets awkward in
Yeah,
those events, because you're like, oh, I really like, exactly as you said, like, oh, I really like horses. Do you like
yeah,
horses? And oh, I have windows in my house. Do you have windows in your house? Like, you
yeah,
know, it's I think we can simplify that if we bring it back to like communication, how we communicate with others and how we sort of use that emotional intelligence as well as like, it doesn't have to be like, it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be that deep.
No,
Like,
and it could simply be, which will help, again, the natural flow of conversations, because I can appreciate everybody's different as
yeah.
well. The simple questions can be, you know, oh, how'd you find out about the event? Or do you know the speaker, if there's a speaker? Or, you know, have you been here before? Those simple little questions. I mean, have you been here before? Sure. Some people could go, yes, no, and that's all you get.
Yeah.
And, you know, hopefully you can move the conversation along a little bit more. Sometimes the conversations are just awkward and the person you're speaking to is maybe not a good fit, you know, and you
Yeah.
can quickly move on to another conversation. So
And if you are one of those people who tends to just give the yes or no answers, try to pick yourself, like check yourself on that.
yeah.
Because someone's trying.
Yeah. Or if that's you, you go, yep. Have you been here before? Like, return
Yeah,
it with a
ask
question.
them. Like, you know, that's an opening for you too.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's this, it doesn't need to be deep, or it doesn't need to start deep. It just gets to be like, oh, this is what we have in common. We're both interested in this conversation.
Yeah.
Right.
I have had, and I appreciate where this person was potentially coming from as well, but I've had a person come up to me at a networking event a while ago now, and it was the question was like, hi, blah, blah, this is what I do. It goes, so tell me about it wasn't like your biggest win for the week. I'm like, a win can be kind of personal, but it takes you a bit deeper, which is nice. But it was something
Yeah.
um, so tell me about what your biggest challenge or problem is right now. I'm like, dude, I don't even know what you do. Like, we haven't even talked yet. It was literally like, hey, Jess, tell me what your biggest problem is right now.
Oh,
And I'm like, unless it was set
this
up as an
conversation.
icebreaker, you know, that's
Yeah.
something different. But this was just,
Oh,
and that was
yeah.
their first question. And I'm like, okay, I'm naturally on the back foot because you've just tried to come into my personal space now to say, I want to get to know you, but
Yeah, and it's
not
almost
in the
like
most comfortable way.
trying too hard. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
and it's just, yeah, again, there's a balance, but you also like, it's like making an attempt and genuinely attempting, but not trying so hard that it's forcing it, that it's like,
yeah,
you know, get into this conversation with me. It's like, well, yeah, it puts someone on the back foot of, well, now I'm in the position of like, could be construed as complaining about things, like,
yeah,
or, you know, sharing or focusing on things that I'm actually not here to focus on.
yeah. But also going, you've also asked me a really deep question
Mm.
and you only know my name. It's like you
Oh,
wanted
yeah.
to jump into bed and we haven't even said hello yet, you know?
Yeah. It's like, oh, okay, that's quick.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like, I know for sure if someone did that to me, like I think I'd be the same as what it sounds you're like, where it's like, I understand what they're trying to do.
yeah,
So I'd try to, like, you know, if I recognize that, I'd try to be like, all right, try to work with you here. But also I know that I'm not sharing
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Just like, oh no, I'm not really going to tell you. It's because then it's kind of like unsolicited advice. And then
yeah.
it's, you know, like, oh God, this is what I wanted.
Which I've also had at networking events once. So.
I've had it more than once. I've had it
Yeah,
several times.
a few times, yeah. And there's a common denominator of the type of conversation and person I'm having it with, where the advice comes from.
Yes.
Just like,
I think we have the same common denominator,
yeah.
like where it's like, oh, thank you, but no, thank you.
Yeah, I'm just gonna let you say your thing, but I'm actually just gonna like put a wall up, so to speak, a polite little wall that just won't allow that in.
Yeah, I'm in my bubble. I'm in my safe bubble.
Yeah.
I've got Sean Paul playing in my head. This is
Yeah.
fine. Oh, oh, we could talk for so long about this,
Mm,
but um hopefully that just gives people, like, just this conversation itself gives people an idea of, you know, how networking doesn't need to be the big scary and, you
yeah.
know, the big bad, and how it can be, um it's, it sounds like the way you approach it and the way you talk about it makes it sound, and I agree with this, so it's not just saying you're only saying this,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it makes it sound and feel like it can be an empowering experience, because it's also choosing what kind of networking style works for you as well. Like, you know, like you said, it's as soon as you said like, oh, you can meet up and have a coffee, I'm like, oh, we're doing something great, awesome. Like there's something that my hands know what to do, and like, you know, that like we're sitting down probably, so there's, or like, you know, other people are like, oh, I want so many people, or I want this, or I want that. And it's just, it means that we actually have a lot more choice than what our our minds might sort of tell us when it comes to networking. Go, oh, that means I have to go to this late night thing, there's going to be booze involved, it's going to be this and that, and some do, yes, but like there's going to be,
there are networking events at breakfast time, morning tea, lunch, when the kids are at school, if you know, if school drop-off's an issue, you know, that type of stuff. There is online events if you want to wear your pajamas, you know, but maybe look a little bit appropriate up top. But
online events are really fun for me. I like in person, I like people, but online, just there's a comfort in it because you can kind of just, you know, you still engage, but it's it's, there's so many different ways. And I think it almost feels like it's destigmatizing networking a little, because it kind of has a little bit of a
I think perhaps because I can, sorry, I'm just going to take over your thought.
Please go, do take it and run with it. Someone has to.
I think perhaps because networking and, you know, sometimes what we see on TV and in the movies and everything else, it's, and I'm going to put this in a box, it's generally men in suits who are peacocking around, who are like, check out my business card, it's amazing, blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the day, all networking is a group of people in the same room, whether that's 10 people or 100, just having conversations and getting to know another human being, you know. Just simplify it to that. It doesn't have to be salesy. Wear something that you're comfortable in, you know, just, and practice being yourself. So
just practice like forming the words where, like, because I think also it's talking about ourselves that can feel so uncomfortable. So it's like practice forming those words, like let your mouth, literally your mouth and your lungs and through your voice box, like, you know, let them literally practice what it feels like just to say it. It doesn't mean you have to stand in front of a mirror, you can if you want to, but it's like let your body actually feel like, know what it feels like to say it, so that way it's a familiar thing when it comes time to saying it to someone else.
I still when I know I'm going to have to do like a quick, I don't know, 30-second intro or whatever, in the car that morning, I'll practice it a few times over, because for me, where I'm at now too is I play with it now and I change it up. So I don't actually say the same thing time and time again. You could see me in the same networking room week after week or month after month, and you'll hear a little bit of difference. But it's also a reminder for me to, by practicing it, it's almost like I'm stepping into my own power, because I'm owning this stuff. I'm owning what I do.
So you're embodying it. It's there.
It's not just about being able to say it in front of a room. It's reminding myself as well of, I know my shit and I'm good at this.
Yeah, you do. And I think that's the point, right? Like that is really the point, because it's like whether you're a business owner, whether you're a professional, like whatever you are doing that for, in this case, like whatever you're doing it for is like, it builds your confidence and you get to build that confidence. But if you're continually just going to the networking room and feeling not confident because you like, and I understand, I'm with you, like, you know, feeling not confident because it's like, I don't remember how to start conversations again. Like
our parents taught us not to talk to strangers, and I haven't talked to strangers.
Every conversation I've ever had was an accident up until now, so I don't know what to do. Like, you know, so it's like, so, you know, but if you're not shifting something in you in that process, you're just going to keep embedding that same experience, and that doesn't help either. So it's like, oh yeah, you just got to build your confidence just with yourself, and you learn, like, exactly as you said, I really want to capture that. You learn how to own what it is that you're good at and what you do.
Yeah.
And you bridge that gap between doing it well, but also like saying that you do it well.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's a whole nother conversation.
That's a whole other conversation. Well, with that, where can people, you know, follow you, connect with you, whatever is your preference, but where can people find you to maybe find out about working with you, or events that you might be holding, or anything
Yeah,
like that?
sure. Well, I am all over the socials. I am the only Kacie Brignell in the world with my spelling, so I'm pretty easy to find. I don't know if that's a good thing at times. Honestly, LinkedIn is probably the easiest. Yeah, LinkedIn is probably the easiest if you've listened to the podcast or watched the recording.
I'll put it in the caption as well. So there's the spelling, it's going to be all correct.
Perfect, yeah. I was going to say a challenge then is when you do reach out, send me a quick message as well and saying, hey, heard your Jess's podcast or something like that.
Yeah.
One, to like help you just reach out and say that first initial hello. And two, so I know where you came from as well.
Yeah, it's fun to know.
LinkedIn is the easiest. We've got our website as well, which is kacierose.com, but everything's spelt not like you think it is. So
yeah, that's true.
Start with LinkedIn. LinkedIn diverts you everywhere else. So
yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for this conversation. I feel like we could have just kept going, but there's so many just gold nuggets of wisdom in that, just to help people, like, if they even got to the point of listening to it, because they might see the title and go, oh, networking, oh no, so I'll have to work on that one. But but just hopefully this has helped. I feel like this is going to help so many people just feel a little more comfortable with that discomfort that will inevitably come, but knowing that greater purpose of it. So
yeah,
thank you so much.
my pleasure. Thanks for having me.